I know, you clicked angry, ready to comment. Bear with me, watch the video first and then reply. Don't start, how dare you, with your best Greta Thunberg voice. No, I actually do have a point. So these are the 5 knives I honestly do not recommend as your EDC. Now, you may choose whatever, and you may have good reasons for that, but I'll explain mine, and I think I'm gonna probably get through a few people and find even better options. As always, if you want to learn more about all of this stuff, this is what I've been doing for a very long time. I've had an entire life dedicated to preparedness, survival, and yes, a passion with knives, guns, and whatnot. You have survival skills, surviving the economic collapse, 2 books that will really help you get a lot better prepared. This one especially has chapters dedicated to, yes, EDC, from clothes to the different tools, and most important, the mindset. That's always going to be far more important than one tool or the other. Let's start with one of the options that I honestly do not recommend. Anything that is an antique, anything that is atypical, unorthodox locking mechanisms. You know, for example, this is an old, one of these old sailor knives from UK, and these, not everything made back in the day is better. These are not particularly tough. These little slabs are quite fragile, so you have to be careful. The metal is not the best thing ever. It doesn't lock into place. It's very hard to open. So this is more of a collector piece for me. This is not something I recommend. Now, I do know that some people will use these things and be very happy with. Oh yes, it's an old knife from World War whatever, right? But I honestly think you have better options. Modern options are sometimes better than the old stuff. It's not always a case that what was old is better than your newer alternatives. I'll also throw in there anything that is, any automatic opening mechanism. Be very careful with that sort of thing. Check your local legislation to make sure that's even legal. But I would keep things simple. I would avoid antiques. Now, very close to antiques is stuff that has a special sentimental value. This is a little Camilla's Cub Scout knife. Now, there's nothing wrong with this knife. Unlike that one, it is a pretty solid, nice little knife. I keep it properly, sharpened and oiled and whatnot. So it's not a bad knife. There's nothing wrong with it. But it is one of these older knives that probably is better in a case, in a display box or something like that, instead of, these are not replaceable. They're not gonna go back in time and making them anymore, right? So probably you want to go with something modern, more affordable. Some of these are quite cheap, but I feel that losing an antique or wearing down on something that is, at this time, something that is a collectible, I believe, maybe not what I would do. Now, I get it. If you want to use it, sure. Another sort of on the same line, the idea of some of these traditional, and yes, this is not older. I mean, it is pretty old, but it's not because of how old it is. It's in the opening mechanism. You have to put your nail in there, so it's not the most practical thing. It does lock into place. So this is a little Spanish navaja. It has a locking mechanism. This is a knife I've actually used for a while, actually for quite a few years, and it's okay. But the locking mechanism, the way in which you open it. I mean, it does have a locking mechanism, which is more than you can say for some other little knives. But all of this fur stuff, if the knife gets dirty and whatnot, you probably are going to be much better served with a modern knife, And then the other type of knives I would probably avoid is anything that is very, very expensive. Now, again, this is just my opinion, but it's based on many years or many decades of being passionate about knives, carrying knives, and using knives. Zero tolerance, what the hell is it, this thing here? 0561. Beautiful. Knife of the year, according to Knife Magazine, whenever it is that this thing came out. It is probably one of the most beautiful knives I've ever seen. One of the most beautiful folders I've ever seen, and I'm not alone. A lot of people agree with me. It's sculptured, 3D sculptured titanium LMAX not assisted. It's flipper open. It's a beauty of a knife. Not the most comfortable thing, but it's fine. and it's a beautiful piece, and it's a very high quality, and it's a very expensive knife. I would avoid very expensive knives, especially when it slowly gets into that thing of it is a collectible. There's not many more of these ever made, right? What is out there is what exists. I had this happen, and for those of you that still have not subscribed to the channel, subscribe right now. For those of you that have subscribed to the channel a few years ago, you know that this was my EDC knife for quite some time. For years, actually. You just can go back and watch the videos. For many videos, this was my EDC knife, right? Many years. I took care of it and whatnot, and one day I lost it, right? One day, I believe I left it like in a, trying on some pants in a clothes store. I thought I dropped it. That was what I believed back in the day, and I was so pissed about that. You've heard me complaining, crying, and moaning for probably years about my lost zero tolerance knife. Fortunately, that was not the case. It had been left in a drawer. I didn't even realize it, and I found it like a fucking miracle. I was, God damn it, there it is. These are expensive knives. Many of these are out of production, and they were expensive when you first buy them. So you think, oh, okay, it's a $200 knife. It's a $250 knife. Oh, but I can afford that. I mean, if I lose it, it sucks, but it's not the end. And then you realize that it's not only the case that, oh, if I lose it, I lost something that's worth $250. Besides, as years go by, they may be even more expensive. And not only that, you cannot replace them anymore. When you bought it, it was a production knife. A few years later, no longer a production knife, more of a collectible. So that's all okay. You do you. Personally, when I get into that point, I believe I'll leave that right in the case. I have a big enough knife collection as it is, so one more is not gonna change anything, and I just go with something else. You can have a number of knives. You can go with something like this. It's still gonna be pretty much a solid folding knife that opens, a single-handed opening, locks, clip, and whatnot, gets the job done. Instead of going with something like this that has freaking fur or something like that, go with a cheap little cold steel. It may end up being the case that even your cold steel knife, for example, I have a cold steel SRK. There's nothing weird about a cold steel SRK. You can go and buy one for like $40 right now. It's the knife that's issued to the Navy SEALs and BUDS, I believe it is. So it's a fairly, current production knife. But the one I have was made in the United States. Carbon 5, first production. Those things are not gonna be around. I mean, it's not that they're not around anymore. They're not made in the United States. They're made in Thailand. And if you have any common sense at all, you realize that an emblematic design like the SRK from Cold Steel, the model made in USA, says very clearly, that's gonna have a higher value in the collector market. And even if you're not planning on selling it, if you just collect things, you believe they have some value, even beyond the money value. You just want to preserve those things. So, that's kind of who you are. Something like this, cheap, solid, lightweight, very solid little knife, works. Why would I go with something tremendously expensive? I have carried expensive knives, and I'm okay with that. But if it's besides being expensive, it's collectible, it's rare, I may just go and see what I can find, maybe pick something else. And last but not least, oh my God, how dare you, Greta Thunberg, how dare you? How dare I? Well, let me explain. I have nothing against Victorinox. I'm not an idiot, okay? I'm not an asshole. I get it. This is the classic of classic, most emblematic EDC knife ever. Victorinox little red scales Swiss Army knife. It's a beautiful knife. It's an extremely well-made knife. It's a good knife. But if we're gonna be objective and honest, it is a knife that was revolutionary back in the day. Today you have to open your knife like so, right? There's no single-handed opening, okay? It's a solid little folding knife, a little peng knife, as they call them in UK. It does not lock into place. The blade is not super strong or anything. I mean, for kind of the same volume and size and weight, I have something that is much stronger. This is a freaking crowbar compared to this thing. When you look at the amount of steel and how much leverage you can put and whatnot, clip, open, locking, all of those things are lacking here. Still, this is the kind of knife that many well-known knife enthusiasts, people that know everything there is to be known about knives, there's some of the most educated knife scholars will have a Victorinox very much exactly like this or very similar in their pocket. And that's fine, they're not stupid. My point is this: if I go by the objective critical view of what I get for the size and weight and whatnot, this is an excellent knife. But in terms of its capabilities, you know, I will just do this. This is also a Victorinox. Victorinox made in Switzerland. A very high quality knife. This is, you know, same brand. I mean, no secret here. And it opens single-handed. If I have to use it for, I mean, I'm not planning on getting into any fight or anything, but I would rather have this than this if I have to use a knife for such a thing. If I have to use a knife for an emergency, anything where I quickly have to cut through something or break through something or do something, you know, put a little bit more force or a lot more force into it, this is a better tool. It opens single hand, it locks into place. And at the same time, I'm really not losing, you know, I have a lot of tools here. I have a saw, a bigger saw, by the way. I have a stronger screwdriver. I mean, it is a bigger knife. And some people will say, dude, calm down. I'm more than happy with this. This is a tiny little Victorinox knife. It does 99% of the things I need it to do, and it does it very well. And a lot of these people will quickly tell you there is a romanticism to it. There's a pleasure to it. There's the sense of, it's my Victorinox. I love this freaking thing. I enjoy using it, and it's a good knife. And that's where I will shut the fuck up and tell you, dude, you do you. In fact, you've seen in my videos, my son has a Victorinox very much like this. My kids have Victorinoxes like this. And I will explain the logic that I applied for the last one that I got for my youngest son. We were in a very nice store with knives and whatnot, and my son was looking around like, you know, just eating things with his eyes. You know what kids are like. You know what a little boy, you know, 7-year-old little kid looking at knives. And he was like, oh, and I told him, you want to pick one up? And he looked at me as if I was, do you want $1 billion in gold? That's the kind of face you get from a kid at that age when you tell him, pick one. Just pick anything you want. Boom. Not this one. It was very much this one, but with camouflage scales. I showed it. I showed it here on the channel, and I told the story. And he was, really? Really? Like, I can actually do this? Yes, you can. You just pick anything your dad will buy for you. It's yours. And that's a memory that he will cherish for the rest of his life. That is worth a lot more than this, even though this is the more practical, logical option. You know why? Because that memory has already been made. Memories matter. Those things change who you are as a person. He will have that knife forever, probably. Hopefully he never loses. And then he will have other knives like I have, like my kids have. And then eventually he will go with, he will go with something like this or something like, go for the more logical. He's probably going to change. He's probably going to want more of a tactically, folder or whatever, something stronger, better, bigger, whatever. But that memory has already been created. My point is sometimes it's not only about making perfectly logical decisions, and sometimes it's honestly about, I just enjoy using this thing, or my grandfather's knife. I personally don't use that. I have my grandfather's knife over there, but it's kind of on the same line of something that is, it's an antique. It is sentimentally a lot of value that it has. I'd rather not lose it and keep it, and every once in a while pick it up, check it out, tell my kids the story about the knife and whatnot, and not have it in my pocket where I could easily lose it or, God forbid, break it during a situation where I need it. That's the logic that I applied to these. These are the knives that I probably would not choose as a first option for an EDC knife, all right? And I think I made my points very, very well, and you're making up your own opinion, and that's perfectly fine. That's exactly the way it should be. Have a great day. Take care.